Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to tackle something that, well, if you're in tech, you've probably felt this pain. We're talking about turning those messy, totally unreliable test scripts into something sleek, powerful, and actually maintainable. A real automation framework. All right, so let's just get right into it. Have you ever had that moment? You write a test script, it works perfectly, and then the next day, for seemingly no reason, it just completely falls apart. It's so frustrating, right? You're just stuck in this endless cycle of fixing things, and it feels like a massive waste of time. So what's the fix? Well, it's really about changing how we think about this stuff. We've got to stop writing these disposable one-off scripts. Instead, we're going to build a real system, an automation framework that's built to last, something robust, reusable, and that can actually grow with your project.
Okay, but how do we actually build this thing? It sounds complicated. Well, think of it like building a house. You wouldn't just start nailing boards together, right? No, you start with a blueprint. You gotta plan out the architecture, figure out what components you need, and pick the right tools for the job.
And this is our toolkit. This is the whole shebang. Now, we call this a hybrid framework because it's not just one thing. It's kind of the best of all worlds. It's data-driven, it's modular. We'll get to what that means with the page object model. And it all works together with these really powerful standard tools, like Maven to manage the project, and of course, Selenium to actually do the browser stuff.
All right, blueprints ready? So, time to break ground. This is probably the most critical part, laying a solid, clean, and really organized foundation for the whole project. And getting set up is actually pretty simple. It's just 3 main steps. First, you spin up a Maven project. That gives you a nice, standard starting point. Then, you pull in all your tools, your dependencies. And last but not least, you set up a smart folder structure to keep everything from becoming a total mess. And look, this isn't just about being a neat freak. It's about being efficient. When your project is set up right, you know exactly where to find your page objects, your test cases, your data, everything. It's like having that perfectly organized workshop. You can just grab the tool you need without thinking. Okay, foundation is solid. Now we can start building the actual walls of our framework. And for this, we're going to use this really clever design pattern. It's called the page object model. So let's look at a common problem this solves. Imagine your app has, dozens of different pages. If you have to write the same exact setup code over and over and over again for every single page, your code just gets bloated. It's super repetitive and a nightmare to maintain. And here is the elegant solution. We just create one single base page class, and we stick all that repetitive code in there, just once. Now, any new page object we make just inherits from that. Boom! It's the classic dry principle in action. Don't repeat yourself. Suddenly, our code is way cleaner and so much easier to handle. So, what is this page object model really? At its heart, it's about keeping things separate. You have the code that clicks buttons and fills out forms, the UI stuff, in one place, and the code that actually describes the test steps in another. Why does that matter? Well, let's say a button on your site changes. You only have to update it in one single spot, the page object, instead of hunting it down in a dozen different test scripts. It's a game changer. Okay, so we've got our foundation, we've got our reusable parts. Now for the fun part. Let's see how this all comes together on the assembly line to build an actual test case, and you'll see just how clean this gets. Just look at this. You don't even need to be a programmer to understand what's happening here. It reads like plain English. Click my account, click register, set the first name. This is what it's all about. This is the payoff. Your tests basically document themselves. But we hit a snag, a really common one. The test works perfectly the first time you run it, but the second time, failure. And why? Well, it's obvious when you think about it. We're trying to register an account with an email that we just registered. It's already in the database. Our test isn't repeatable, and that's a huge problem. So this leads us to the next big step. We need to make our framework not just automated, but smart. It has to be robust enough to handle stuff like this all on its own, without us having to go in and manually clean things up. And the solution is actually pretty simple in concept. We stop hard-coding our test data. No more using test@test.com every time. Instead, we're going to generate a brand new, totally unique email address every single time the test runs.
This is what we call dynamic test data, and it's the secret to making your tests truly independent and repeatable.
And how do we do that? We just build a few little helper methods, little utility functions. One that spits out a random string, one that gives you a random number, another that mixes them up. These tiny little tools are surprisingly powerful. You can use them everywhere to generate unique data for anything you need.
Okay, there's one final refinement to make this whole thing really slick. Remember how we moved the common code out of our page objects and into a base page? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing for our test cases. All that setup stuff, the teardown code, even our new random data generators, we're going to move all of it into a single base class.
And the difference is, well, it's night and day. Look at the before. The test case is just cluttered with all this setup and teardown code. But the after, once it extends our new base class, all that's left is the actual test logic, the important stuff. It is so focused, so easy to read, and an absolute breeze to maintain.
And really, that's the big idea here. This way of thinking, spotting repetitive tasks, pulling them out into reusable pieces, and building a smart structure, it's not just for software testing. Not at all. It's a powerful way to design any system that needs to scale and be easy to maintain. So it leaves you with a question, right? What's that one messy, chaotic process in your workflow that you could totally transform just by bringing in a little bit of order?